Welcome to the Radial Ventures podcast, where we talk about cutting edge technology, its effect on society, and what it means for building new companies. I'm your host, Dan Miner. I run the media platform seriesbuffalo.com. Please check it out and sign up to our newsletter. And I'm here with the senior leadership team of Radial Ventures, Buffalo's first and only venture studio. Hey guys, how you doing?
Howdy. Doing great, Dan.
Let's talk about the thing that everybody else is talking about this week and really break it down, which were the layoffs that were announced by Block. There's a lot of different perspectives that you could have on this, including whether the coinciding announcement by the CEO, Jack Dorsey, was honest or whether it was kind of cover for the cuts that he and maybe possibly the rest of corporate America wanted to make. But really interesting slice of life in terms of the interaction of AI and corporate America and society and what it's going to mean for us going forward. And I think we have the minds here to really break down what it means. So let's start off with just the announcement itself. I think we all read at least the articles about it. Why don't you guys tell me what you thought about what was said and what you thought it meant?
I think it's hard to imagine a more powerful startup founder in all of tech coming to a conclusion that he came to and then publicly doing that in the way that he did. I do think it's going to provide a lot of cover for a lot of folks who were maybe considering that as a strategy. And I think we're going to see a lot more of those things happen in the next 2, 3, 6 months as people digest that as a reasonable strategy for their business to be able to create the revenue that they're going to need to make the adjustments that they're going to need within their company to roll AI capabilities out across the organization.
Yeah, it was incredibly transparent, right? In how he was doing it and why he was doing it. So when you see mass layoffs come in the past, you can assume that it's AI and new technology, but he was very clear in getting ahead of that curve and not kind of pulling off the Band-Aid slowly, but ripping it off and leaning it into the new tech.
Yeah, I think there's probably a difference as well. You know, you look at, I think Amazon had a bunch of layoffs and kind of mentioned AI, but I don't know that necessarily the tech may have been there or it was enough to like do mass amounts of layoffs. And things, you know, companies like Amazon, obviously over COVID, as someone who was constantly recruiting people against Amazon and trying to hire our own folks against them, they definitely overhired. The mantra in 2020, 2021 was really just go hire as many people as you can. Get engineers, get data scientists, machine learning engineers, just hire as many people because it's all about talent. And that was still the zero interest rate era and they went wild. So I think there were some of them in the past that were very much using AI as an excuse to kind of cover up the fact that they grossly overhired and then the market slowed down and realized, okay, we don't need to keep all these people and bank them and basically have them there ready and waiting. It's more, okay, we need to be more efficient just from a macro standpoint. Where I think it's interesting with Block, I think there is a greater probability that they have implemented the tools. Like the tooling, all the different AI tooling has come along from a engineering perspective and automation perspective, where I think it probably is a lot more honest that less people are able to be more efficient. And, you know, the need to not carry all those employees. And especially when you're a public company and, you know, the stock moved a ton after that announcement. So it's going to be a real struggle between here's some easy wins I can get from an efficiency, from a cost and kind of out to the market. And if I can do that, boost the stock while still being leaner and doing what we need to do, you know, I think there's going to be a lot more of it. But the way he laid it out, I mean, it seemed transparent, and I believe more now than in the past that, yeah, this is AI related.
Dan, Mags, why would they hire that fast? Like that's something I've never really understood. Like why does a big company even do that? Is it just figure out after?
It's just like a war for talent, right? And so if you can just hire everybody, then their competing companies can't hire them. And, you know, it was really just an era where it's boards on down, just keep hiring tech, keep hiring tech. And that was kind of the mantra up until kind of the market turned a couple of years ago. Everyone's saying, if you don't have the talent, you're cooked, and go get them and save them. And you'll figure out what to do with them. And there'll be new projects and new products for them to work on and, you know, all this other stuff. And then, then the world changed and they were kind of stuck holding the bag for sure.
So when you zoom out though, then like we should actually maybe do this or check, but like, are they then the same size as they were 6 years ago? And
Right.
like, is it really an AI thing, or is it just that they overhired and now AI has kind of made it better? I think we all agree with that. Like, none of us are going to think like that Block is not doing anything innovative internally. Are they just right sizing to where they were before because they all overhired? Facebook did this. Elon proved it at Twitter. I think that's really like the first salvo if you're really like looking at it. And that was without AI even. It was just, we have 10,000 employees. We only need 2,000 employees. And a lot of these companies can operate that way. You zoom out now to other industries, I'm less worried that it'll happen there as much. I think the tech jobs are the ones that are most at risk. I think when you like get to other positions, it's going to take a lot longer for everything to seep in than normal. I think you look at the 90s and different periods, and you could say like it took 15 years for us to work on the internet fully, right? Like we in the mid 90s, the way we use the internet is not how it was in 2010. So like it took a while. Now I think it's going to be accelerated via AI, but like I still think it's going to be a while for us to like replace all jobs with agents that do things. That's where a lot of this like fear mongering comes from, or seems to start. And I just think personally, we're not there yet. Like it's going to happen, but it's going to be a little slower than everyone thinks.
I only somewhat agree with you on that.
You can
I
fully
think
disagree with me.
I don't fully disagree. There are certainly areas where it will continue to be slower. I think what makes this different than everything else that's ever happened is that if you look at the rate that the rest of these AI tools have rolled out into industry, breaking record after record of the fastest rollouts, the fastest levels of adoption, the highest levels of user growth, that's going to continue to roll forward because of the other economic forces, the other geopolitical forces at play are really providing the pressure needed to accelerate the normal rate of business, or what we would consider to be the normal rate of deploying these things. Those two things combined, right? The fact that people are willing to do this, there's a level of comfort with the risk and the challenges that come with rolling out these new tools that didn't exist before. And there's economic pressure for these companies to survive. And through our efforts in Buffalo, we hear people say over and over again, we feel this is existential to our business. I've heard that 4 or 5 times in the last 6 weeks from folks. And
so I think it's a speed question is real. Like we're both in agreement. It's just like, is it going to happen in 2 years or is it going to happen over 10 years? And there's enough time to like switch roles and have people relearn things, right? Like, I think that's really the core of it. Not if, but when.
Yeah. So the bell curve on that, I think, is pretty heavy in that 2 year.
I don't see people using these things in reality. But if you remove developers who are just like replacing themselves at the fastest rate possible, right? Like we want to just like, none of us want to have any jobs to do. We want agents to do all of our work. I don't meet people that actually like use tools. Their companies don't even let them use like foundational models. So like, that's where I think it is going to like pewter out and like speed down a little, hopefully.
For every one of those companies that's out there not doing that now, the models are getting in a super exponential way now. Those models are getting more capable. They're getting smarter. They have a vast capability to reason. And so anyone who moves late is just going to be advantaged by that. And it's going to roll across their company incredibly fast when they finally pull the trigger. So will there be late movers? Sure. But if you think of where we were a year ago to now, and then you even try to extrapolate where we are now to a year from now, and if you decide to move then within a year, you have incredible capabilities within your organization.
And I think there's a few factors that really play into this, right? Like the models got really, really good at software engineering first. So these people who were very well paid and expensive to keep on payroll, right? The models actually went and solved that problem first. And when that laser cannon is next focused on, whatever it might be, legal, medicine, whatever, right? You're going to see that wave crash down. You're going to see people reduce workforce when the model gets better in those areas. But I think we saw that thing that Dan was talking about in 2021. And then you saw the models basically focus and be incredible at software engineering. And now that's evaporating within these companies and they're turning, one engineer into a 10x engineer. I think that'll continue to like eat through the workforce as the models get good at those functions.
Let me step in and ask you something here. Is 1 engineer now equal to 10 engineers in 2022? If possible, walk me through some of the tools that you've learned how to use and the actual functional efficiency that you're seeing.
Yeah. So I don't know what the number is, but you're capable of doing much more as an individual. When a single software engineer doesn't have to manually type code in, they can obviously generate it, and they're just become the reviewers and the orchestrators of the tools. So the velocity at which an individual can work at is far greater than what we've seen, 3 years ago.
And do they get as good as they would have written from their prompts?
Yeah, they get better. And that's really what becomes so interesting. So when you have someone who's capable of orchestrating the intelligence, that's where you have a ton of leverage, right? And so engineers are using this to produce product much, much faster. And now what we're seeing or what we're pushing on at Radial is like, what other functions in the organizations can we start to spin up, right? So as we look at go-to-market functions and top of funnel stuff, we're creating agents that have that specific domain expertise and focus in order to go provide that to us. Obviously, we're not reducing staff. We're actually able to do a lot more with a small team of people. And that's what's really exciting for us. We have a new leverage point that we can use to deploy into all of the areas of business.
I'd like to ask this. What does it mean to have an agent supporting your go-to-market tactical side or strategy side? Like what is that?
Yeah. So the way I think about it is like, imagine you had this intern come in and they're a savant. They're absolutely incredible. They're totally, I think they say cracked. And so, you're not going to give this person the keys to the kingdom on day one, but you'd be in regret if you didn't use that person. So you have to really think about these things that way. So we have an agent that we can talk to via Slack and Telegram and all different channels that we chat with it a lot like an employee. Hey, I need you to do X. Here's my objective. How might we get there? What tools would you use? What tools do you need to do your job? These are the same things that we'd say to a human who walked into our office on day one. And they're like, I need to get set up in your tooling. I need to understand the context, et cetera, et cetera. And we'd provide that to the human. So we work with the agents in that type of realm where we're just providing them the information, providing them with their objectives, and watching them execute on it. The wild thing is there's actually not enough time to get up and like go fill up your coffee before it's done with its objective and you come back and it's done. So it becomes a limitation of the human and your ability to kind of direct and provide clear objectives to the agent.
So I actually look at it as like a change in human computer interaction that we should also plan for and expect. Like before, if you were a knowledge worker, you'd sit in front of a computer and your job was to create a document or an artifact. You'd sit there and spend an hour doing it. And now, like Jonathan described, you're either making some tasks in linear or a tool that an agent goes and finds and does autonomously, or you message it, or you send a message through Slack. Like you could be getting in your car to go to work and say, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. When you land there, or when you get to your office, it's all done, right? And now you can take action is like the person that has to do that work. So it is removing the clicking on a keyboard for X number of hours to create files and moving it, where that's done. Now, what is the next step or what next job function as part of your job that you fulfilled? Like that's how we have to start to rethink the way we work.
Have you played with Claude Code remote control in Claude Code yet? Where you can kick it off now and you can do RC remote control, and now your phone is the remote control for your computer. And on that drive to work, you can just keep working with it, and not while you're driving, of course.
So maybe,
but,
it's a self-driving
car, right? Your self-driving car, you're just controlling your computer remote, and they made it buttery smooth to do that now.
Yeah, the things that like you really have to consider is there's a lot of hype out there that you just land and the work is done. And it's simply not true. You really have to continue to like mush this thing like you would maybe a junior employee to help them level up and understand what you're trying to get to. So it's not like you one shot it, put a prompt in, land at work, and all your work's done for the day. You have to work with it like you would a human or someone next to you to say, well, this is a little off. Let's adjust this here. Maybe it's a visual layout. Maybe it's a copy tweak, but you're still working with it like you would a human. The thing is, it doesn't sleep. And after a few passes, right, it's going to rip on its own and run those workflows as expected.
But so for now it doesn't. But I think like setting up OpenClaw this weekend, you realize, okay, am I adding skills and I'm adding knowledge? I'm adding a way for this to learn. It will actually one-shot it. And then that's where we have to just rethink of what our job function is. Like someone's job isn't to go create spreadsheets for 8 hours or to create design files for 8 hours anymore. The design files are all done the moment they get to their office now. And they actually have still 6-7 hours of work to fill, right? And they're going to still go do that. Like, I think that's where it's like really interesting and much higher level than AI replacing everything of like, well, what do you do now? And how much faster does everything move? And these are the things that make us move much, much faster. Instead of A/B testing, you're A through Z testing. You're doing the whole alphabet because you can create that many design comps that fast. And you're not, hung up anymore because a human being has to create, Photoshop comps or Figma comps or whatever. So it is just like, what does our work look like? What does our purpose look like? And how much faster do we have to operate? And that scares a lot of people, understandably.
I got to take that back to what you brought up the question before, because you don't need everybody in your organization to be able to do this. You only need a handful. And that's one of the other perspectives that I think is not intuitive for a lot of folks is when you think about your engineering team getting a tool to use, you sort of inherently think of all of them getting the same tool to use and they're going to use it. The reality is that today, if you have a team of 10 or 20 software engineers and 3 of them get really good at using these tools, they're going to completely annihilate the rest of the team in their productivity. It's not even going to be close. Those other folks, in all likelihood, are actually slowing down the process now. They can't, you're creating a work environment that's very, very different, and you can't operate in it the old way. That's the impact. And you're going to see that, to Jonathan's point, you're going to see that in other organizations, in other job functions. The companies that we talk to in Buffalo, for the folks who are early adopters of AI, you'll hear the story. I have a team of 2 or 3 people in this particular job function, and this one person has been playing around with ChatGPT, or this one person's been using Gemini, and they're able to do all this stuff, and I don't know how to get it across the rest of the team. That's where, Radial Agency can come in and help them. That's the kind of stuff you're going to start seeing really changing the work environment.
That's going to be the big piece for, I guess, if you're an employee worried about your career or, what's going to happen. I mean, I think the reality is, as companies start looking at similar actions that Block took, it's going to be the people who are resisting learning the new tools, using the new tools. And it's those people who are kind of clinging to the old way of doing it that are going to be one of the 4,000 in that scenario. It becomes very apparent who is using it, who's not, who's embracing the new tooling and the opportunity. And it's going to be very apparent who isn't, and that's going to be the differentiator of who makes the cut and who doesn't.
All right. So let's round it out here by talking about the process and the opportunity of building startups, given all the context. Really robust discussion about lots of changes in the workplace, in corporate America, and society. So what does this mean for founders? And how are you guys approaching building companies? That's your job, right? How do you become the people that are better at it than the other people now? Like, how do you build skill differentiation?
The tooling, everything is evolving so quickly. It's daily and by the minute, new tools, and it is hard to keep up. There's a lot coming at you. And so I think the real key is try to have an understanding of the tools at high level, choose some that you can become proficient at and have an opinion around. Little by little, start going deeper and deeper into these tooling that help solve your problems, right? So if on the startup creation side, it's, as we were saying, like, what are the different functions that these tools are well positioned to do is a need for you internally. And, whether it's go to market or whether it's the software engineering piece, it really allows you the ability to be able to do a lot more than you were able to do in the past. Now you don't need to go out and find software engineers. There's people who, never wrote a line of code in their life, and, they're launching products and bringing in revenue and all that other stuff. Yeah, it's very interesting from that perspective. But, as a startup founder now, there's a ton of competition and there's a ton of uncertainty, especially on the venture side in terms of, is this thing going to be around or is AI going to make this irrelevant, right? And so there's a lot of kind of fear and hype and all that kind of stuff circling around that adds for some uncertainty, but in a time where it's easier than ever to launch a company and launch a product and do all that stuff. At the end of the day, there's still the fundamental pieces of running a business, right? Just having a product doesn't mean you have a business, but a lot of competition and a lot more bloody oceans you got to go fight in.
The application layer is becoming disposable. So your advantage as a software engineer, or your advantage that you used to have having a software engineer in your startup to get started is continuing to diminish. When you think about starting a new company or what space you're going to go into, you're either going to opt for moving really fast and trying to beat folks there, and then eventually being in even bloodier ocean, or you're going to secure some data that maybe you have unique access to. You're going to build data that is perhaps a unique data set. It's really that data and other moats that are going to secure your position in whatever market and whatever business you're trying to build, more so than your ability to have software engineers available to build your platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take an optimist view on this, right? Especially for early stage companies where they're strapped for cash, constantly making different quick decisions, pivoting their company, and you need to get a lot done very quickly. Well, now these folks are enabled to go do that. Aside from the software engineering side, you need to go hunt for customers, build those relationships. But there's a lot of admin work that takes place to go do that. And so these technologies can help that single founder or the two co-founders go do the stuff maybe in marketing or otherwise to go get attention for the world. And that's where I think it's less about the workforce is going to go to zero and we're all going to be building wooden tables in the woods, but it's more that these companies are going to be able to fill the cracks and do the things that they know they should be doing because now they have the resources and the tooling to go make that happen. Like the task list doesn't get smaller, right? And to Nicholas's point before, you might land at your office and have 7 more hours of the day and your first initial task is done. What are all the other things that you need to be doing to drive business? All of those things that would stress you out or you'd be doing at 10 p.m. at night, you'll be able to go do and execute on. So that's really exciting, certainly for early stage companies. I think we're going to see a small business revolution in this for all the mom and pops who are struggling, who can't hire someone to manage their books or their marketing or whatever it might be, right? They're now going to be able to create that stuff and have a much more stable, rounded out business because they have this agentic workforce amplifying what they do every day.
Viva la small business revolution.
That's right.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, John. I definitely feel in this conversation, I'm talking a lot about existing organizations. There's very much the optimistic view that we all hold that there's this entire world of new things that are going to exist that were too expensive to exist before. And now they can exist. You're going to see a lot of teams of, and this is hardly new information for anybody, but like you're going to see a lot of 1 to 4 person teams building incredible companies and platforms from the ground up, and be able to operate those with however many agents it takes to run those organizations. That is the other side of the huge impact that's going to happen. What's Jack Dorsey's company? You have to edit this out. Block.
Square.
Yeah. And Block just cut 4,000 of those people loose into the economy.
Yeah. Like how much value can be created now from those 4,000 people? They might take that initial shock, but how many of them are going to say, hey, let's go create something now? Now I can be a founder easier than ever, right? To create new value. I think the pie is going to get bigger, right? Not without the disruption, but the pie will get bigger for everybody. And that's what allows me to sleep at night. Otherwise, I wouldn't at all.
Right. Even easier with like what they have 27 months or 100 months of severance money.
Exactly.
It was like 22 or something. It was, yeah. That'll buffer it. But
you can do that when you have $1 billion profit in 2025.
Definitely helps. And going back to that, in 2019, Block had 3,800 employees. They got up to almost 13,000 in 23, and now they're back down to 6,000, which is where they were at. They were around a little under 6,000 in 2020.
It's tough to you can't apply. You could look at revenue then over those years and see if they're the same, but I mean, there's other economies of scale for them. But I think in general, they are just right sizing a bit more than anything else. So AI is a big part of it, but it's not all of it. When you asked about startups, Dan, and places to focus, I do think the small businesses are super interesting because they're not going to have the infrastructure and people to do this stuff for them. They never have. It was websites in the 90s and then SEO, SEM, and then maybe an app if they needed one, and then POS apps and things like that. So you can imagine startups tackling agentic processes within small businesses as a really interesting way to say, You have a small local business, but you could have a CFO that's as good as a CFO at a Fortune 500 company running your plumbing business here in Buffalo or something. Like that's really intriguing. And I think that's a place to think about and look at in terms of product and software as we go forward, is like, what do these agents actually look like inside organizations, and how are they provisioned so they're not super easily removable by a foundation model? Because that's really the number one question. It's like, I don't even know moats exist anymore. It's really just like, am I just going to do this in ChatGPT one day and not have to worry about it? Like, if that's the case, then you probably don't have a company. So that's really what we have to think about and see.
Enterprise, commerce, business, and the problems that other people, innovators need to solve for them aren't going away just yet. It's one of the takeaways I get from this. So I know I'm with a crew here that's going to solve a whole bunch of awesome problems rooted in Buffalo going forward. So thanks, guys, for another really robust discussion. And we'll see you next week on the Radial Ventures podcast.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
It's good.
It was awesome.
Need most.
It was my goal to stay dry pace today, but I failed. Next time.
Fire and brimstone.